Hey, friends. Welcome to the Enhance Your World show. I'm your host, Chris Alba. Larkin is unable to join us today due to family emergencies. Of course, this is our new time and place, Mondays at 2 p.m. We'll be streaming live, and of course, you can always see the replays and everything like that on our social media streams on Facebook, the Enhancer World Show, and YouTube, and then also on enhancingyourworld.com. You can see all the replays. So thanks for tuning in, checking out with us, hanging out with us. Should be a super interesting conversation today. Feel free to add any comments or anything like that, so you can help steer this conversation, and it's not just a direct channel or opinions or anything like that. But um, there's, as I observe, there's a lot of folks, and myself included, that have shared awarenesses and information and insights and directions and things like that on how to live a holistic well-being, live in the vibration of holistic well-being. And that's the flow of abundance, right? That life is always unfolding and expanding for us in ways. And when we feel, at least for myself, when I have felt stuck, or I didn't feel like the timing was right, or the conditions weren't right, or I didn't have certain resources or certain things, there's a time where there's a time to sit and make sure that that energy that you're feeling, that whether you identify it as overwhelm or anxiety or excitement or nervousness or purpose, or however you choose to define the energy vibrations within yourself, that's part of the relation of life. Life is what life is, and the circumstances, the conditioning, the styles in which we live it, that's and from my view, our purpose here on earth. It's not to be anyone's savior, or to be an authoritarian to how other people are to live. I was asked this question this week by my father, and he said, "Well, what gives you the right to lead?" And I was like, I actually would prefer not to, but many times I've been asked to, and a lot of times people follow because of the ways that I've been, or the things that I was walking towards, or what I was looking to do, or bring into reality, because they saw benefit in it for themselves. And when they no longer saw it beneficial for themselves, or there was too much chaos or too much challenge or whatever, most times people leave. And that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, because we all commit our life force energy, our time, our intention, our presence, our finances, all those various different things we invest in each other to help us through life. And, as I was reflecting today on what we could call this show, and what the title should be, and, all that kind of stuff, what should we talk about? I also thought I was going to be talking to Larkin, who is a channeler and an intuitive, and talks to the other side and things. So I thought that would be really fun to play off of. So maybe we'll have to revisit this topic. But when speaking with elders on the question of death, it's inevitable for all of us. So the question shouldn't even be about when am I going to die, or how am I going to die, or in what style am I going to die, but really the one that we have each day to ask is, how am I going to live? How am I going to live today? Am I going to live in response to how other people are living? how they're choosing to do things, how they're choosing to perceive things, how they choose to believe, how they choose to act? Or am I going to self-steward myself from my center channels, grounded in mind, body, and spirit, right? And walk with intentionality, and allow life to unfold and surprise me in ways that I'm not expecting, because I'm not spending a lot of time and energy overthinking what if this, what if that, oh, this needs to happen this way, or this happens this way, or whatever. But it's really being presented in the now moment, and being able to be able to have difficult conversations without losing your emotional center, without projecting anger or frustration or contempt or defensiveness, or all those things. There's a difference between saying your truth and being defensive about your truth. There's an energy tone there, there's a frequency tone there. um, you know, when you know that you're doing everything you know how to do the best way you know how to do it, you can say that's where I'm at. And if there's a better way for me to get XYZ results, or a better way for me to handle these circumstances or whatever, now I got to get curious so I can learn how to embody these outcomes, through these practices, to achieve that. And it can come in all these different fashions, all these different ways. We talk about true spirituality being like a buffet, and it being just everything that you could ever imagine on the buffet. And you can take a little bit of this, or take a little bit of this, or try this, or try that. And you can revisit things that you haven't tried in a while, or you can stay away from things because you remember last time you didn't like the taste of it, or it hurt your stomach, or whatever. That is no different than how we live each and every day of our lives. Um, um, my my dad and I were talking yesterday about some things, and he had mentioned, going bowling, and I started laughing, and I said, well, bowling could be considered spiritual, and look at all these different principles behind it. Look at the community behind it. Look at all those different things. Now it can be seen in that way, but I've also been a part of those leagues, and a lot of times it's just about getting an escape from life, and drinking some drinks, and having some fun, and trying to distract yourself from the life that you've created, because you haven't created with true intention. You've been creating through conditionality. There was a relationship in my life that I remember at one Sundance I was having an emotional breakdown, and I would have been willing to die for this person. I was so entangled, and I almost did, because I was so distraught and heartbroken, and all those various different things. But that was what I knew was going to eventually happen, because I needed to resolve some things way deep down in the depths of where I had never been able to explore before, because I wasn't in a condition to truly do that. I had done that in many different aspects of my life, in many different industries, and many different businesses, different professions, things like that. But this one, it was, one that really took me through a loop, because I had developed and created this life that I really was in flow with living, and I had the center, and all these things were really going well for me, even though I had to let go of things such as my marriage, and being a full-time father, and things like that, and learning how to adapt. And when that all transpired, the last few years has really been um, what I needed to heal. And it included a wide array of different ceremonies, a wide array of different teachings, a lot of time sleeping, a lot of time meditating, a lot of time being out in nature, a lot of times just doing something to bring a deeper connection to allow myself to feel what I was feeling without trying to hide from it, without trying to extract it, without trying to understand it, without me trying to convince myself it was different, or to be able to project it outwardly, or any of those things. Just to sit in it and say, you know what, it is what it is, and whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. And I know my loving heart, and it's not my will or my desire to share people's secrets, or destroy their character, or to do any of those types of things, even though there are times in my life that I've done that. And because I've done those things, I know the repercussions of it. And I know not only how it hurts another person, but also helps or hurts my character, because I'm the one doing it. So when I chose not to do it, it wasn't because I wasn't willing to stand up for myself. It was that I knew it didn't fucking matter. Because people are going to believe what they're going to want to believe. If they want to know truth, they're going to quest after it. They're going to come sit. They're going to come spend time. They're going to ask questions. They're going to engage. They're going to show up. Because they care. If they don't care, then they tend to go away. This is why I believe you don't have to enforce boundaries and say, oh, you triggered me and you hurt my feelings. And, we're supposed to do that for one another. That's how we grow within our relations. It's not through pleasure and ease. Always. Those are the rewards. Those are the benefits. It's like a machine properly in proper alignment. It just runs so much better than if there's things that are a little off, a little chaotic. So we have to learn through our relations with other people, because those are the things that we can't control, to learn what we can control. And that's the way we feel. Not our emotion. Emotion only lasts a short period of time. 90 seconds or whatever science says. A feeling is a justified energetic thought, in my opinion. And then you have your thoughts. And those two invisible forms of information will allow us to behave in a certain way until we get contrast back. And then when we get that contrast back, thanks, Chad. when we get that contrast back, whether it was accepted or it wasn't accepted, then that's part of our shaping our relationships. That's merging through the inclusivity of unity and love. It's not always easy. As an addict, someone who still is in active addiction, not with destructive drugs or alcohol or anything like that, but living and experience life. I enjoy living. So I'm going to do what I can to do it in the best way that I can. So in my view, that's still an addict. I'm still addicted to breathing, right? Because I want to continue it. So how can I do that in the best way? How can I make sure I'm taken care of in the ways that I need to take care of myself? But again, if I'm only focused on that, then I'm not going to have the benefit of karma, which is a reciprocation. I'm at my home and retreat center, working in the garden today. And I put in time and energy and water it and pull bugs and do what I can for it. And it in return provides me with a reward of some food. Not everything, because bugs get things, and that's part of it. That's part of the homeostasis. I shared a photo today on Facebook, and it was like I showed all the fruits and all the things that I got off of it. Then I showed some of the bugs that have taken some of the other stuff. And it's like we all share in the same crop. We share in the same reward. So while I promise you, I've killed some bugs, and I don't use chemicals or anything like that. I hand pick and do the things that I can, and use organic remedies and natural pest deterrents and companion crop and those types of things to try to reduce the influence of those things that harm the crop for my consumption. But in relationship with nature, we're feeding everything. So isn't that a beautiful thing? As a bug. So, to die is easy. When I committed suicide, when I got to that point to where, I was slitting my wrists and I was prepared to die, that was easy. That wasn't difficult. The hard part is continuing on. The hard part is going into those depths, sitting in those depths, making friends with those demons, those fears, those insecurities, all those things, unworthiness, those types of things. And then realizing you're just as worthy as anyone else. Now, worthy does not mean that you have as much money or possessions or anything else. That's the monetized man-made world that we've created. That's the society that we've created. And if we're going to create the new earth, we have to unify, which is inclusive, remember, of both those realities. How do we exchange energy? How are we exchanging consciousness or consciously? Are we in harmony? Are we taking more than we are receiving or that we're giving? Because then, just like nature has parasites, you can be one of those too. Or you can be a pollinator, you can be someone that's actually going to contribute to our natural planet and to the stewardship of our planet and of our humanity, and realize that it's more than an identity or a cause or a religion or anything else, but it's being a true embodiment within yourself, being the best version of yourself in relation to all other lives. I had this amazing conversation this week at a natural spring with a gentleman, and many would say, "Oh, it was divinely orchestrated," because that was how he thought. He immediately was like, "I wasn't planning on coming here today. I was just sitting at home, and then all of a sudden I had this thought, like I really needed to get here today to get water. I was going to get it the following day or tomorrow." Because I worked hard today and I didn't feel like doing it, but for whatever reason I felt called to come here, and I'm so grateful that I had this conversation. And it was a great conversation. That was my part that day. I shared a long story about how the whole day unfolded and all that stuff, because that's what's being demanded of us in social media. Like we're supposed to make ourselves some kind of star or something significant other than our true nature, which is significant enough, which is already superhuman, beyond understanding of modern sciences. That's why the ancient world is so fascinating. because in our modern world, we want to reduce everything to understand it, to duplicate it. And the cosmos is like, oh, okay, that's a raindrop in the ocean. That's in a puddle, a raindrop in a puddle. Go for it. Like if that's what you want to focus on, but you're not seeing the vastness of everything else. And that's what happens when we are so committed to our causes, to our special interests, to this, that, or the other. You know, I'm so lucky that it didn't turn out for me to where I was put into a war where I had to choose my life over another's, over something that I didn't believe in. It's probably why they let me go from the military, because I could critically think, and I've talked to a lot of people that have had that opportunity, and some of the horrors that they carry and some of the scars and wounds and how their life is forever changed because of that ultimate sacrifice, those sacrifices that they made. And at the end of the day, the thing that they regret the most is that the people that ordered them to do it are the ones that are profiting, while those that were the ones committing those acts are suffering. That's inequality. See, what helped me in business and all that kind of stuff was my personal leadership, my willingness to do what it was that needed to get done, because in my early 20s, honestly, I didn't trust anyone else to do it. And I've had many examples in my life where that could stay true. But to walk as a conscious being, I remain open and understanding that not everybody is that way. How do I know? Because I wasn't. Or I was. And because I was, I learned why it was beneficial not to be that way. Why spend all the extra time, energy, money, effort, energy trying to harm somebody just so you can feel justice or justified in your choice? I hope you find what it is that you're looking for so you can truly know what living is for. What it feels like to wake up and know that your life matters in ways that you can't even identify. Whether it was an expression on Facebook or something you shared, or whether it's a smile at the grocery store or the gas station, or a conversation you had with a stranger, or a friend, or a family member needs a hand with something, or needs some assistance, and you're able to provide that for them. That's what life is for, is it not? To be of service, to have purpose. I sure do appreciate when people show up before the house is on fire asking for help to put the fire out. However, that's when the person needs it the most. And I hear so many people that get abandoned in their greatest time of need, whether it was drug use or alcohol use, or depression, or some kind of financial challenge or whatever. And they just, I love you, but I'm going to leave you because you're going through this. And I had a friend that worked 3 jobs to put his wife through plastic surgery school, and to do all that. And she became a very well-known plastic surgeon. And he got cancer and was looking at his end of his life, and it was not given him a very good prognosis from his doctors, and she left him in the middle of that. And I remember being so angry at her because he's such a beautiful person. He gave so much of himself to his students and to her, like the way he held her up on a pedestal, and he just glue when when he talked about his family and all these various different things. Wow. Know what it feels like, and luckily I got to walk with him through those times. Not as much as I wanted, but he was a huge impact and mentor in my life. And even though he could have done anything that he wanted in his life, he chose to be a high school student because that was what he was truly willing to live for, was to help guide people in the time of need. What got in his way was the system. Okay. And protocol that had never been in this classroom or known as kids or whatever. Not that he heard it. But he talked of America and we burned sage and all that kind of stuff in the 90s. So it wasn't like it was today where people would be like, oh yeah, it's just what you do. But he planted seeds, I'm very grateful for that. So we're looking at jobs. I mean, I was talking to a mother the other day, and she was talking about how blessed she was that her husband made enough money to where she only had to work a certain amount of hours per week because that gave them the extra money to go on vacations and doing those things. And she homeschooled her kids and all that, and they're heavy into the recovery community, and I mean, beautiful all the way around. And then we were standing there and she was kind of complaining about some things, and as we got to talking, you could hear that things were a little out of alignment, but she had sold herself on this story of why she was doing it, why it was significant, why it had to be done, why she needed to have go through all the things that she was going through so she could provide for her kids and these experiences with her kids. And I remember when I was a child, and a lot of times, especially after a mental, emotional, and physical abuse, it was always like, come by and apologize. Sorry, I lost control of myself. I've just really wore out at work. They're demanding a lot of me and my time and my energy, and I don't want to be doing this type of life, but I'm doing this type of life to provide you guys with the financial means to just have enough. And I always talk about lack in your life, because it's not about living forward. It's about just maintaining the status quo of all the woes, which I'm so grateful for. I didn't realize it, but that was a big, huge motivational factor for me in life. And it's like when you hear the stories of people that come from extreme poverty, and they become these huge financial successes, and they say, why, what was the motivation behind it? And it's like, well, I know what it's like to live on the other way, and I didn't want to live that way, so I chose this way. Guess what? They're probably just as miserable, just as unhappy. They got more stuff, more distractions, more responsibilities. Their lifestyle looks different than when they were at the kid, but at their core, they still feel the same. You know how I know? Psychologists and therapists and people that continuously do the same thing over and over again, hoping that someday something is going to save them outside of themselves and not realize it's themselves. It's not Jesus. It's not the church. It's not your job. It's not how much money you make or don't make. It's not your relationship. Yes, all those things add value or take energy away. But that's the circumstantial life or the styles of life that we talk about. We're talking about the source of life, which is our existence. It has no other logic, reason, story, narrative. It's like you're a walking zombie, but yet you're still alive. To be completely mindless, it would be impossible for us as humans to live that way and function in the ways that we do. but that would be a version of complete, it's like Mamo once joking with me. He said, it took me years to realize when they talked about still your mind, still your mind, still your mind. It wasn't stopping your thoughts. It was just stop paying attention to the thoughts that you were having. Quit giving them energy. Just observe them. Notice that they're there, and just don't give them any mind, like someone you don't want to talk to. Right? It's not super complicated. But because people have to generate income and their profession and their career, and they have to make a lifelong thing at this, that they're successful if they've got a client for 10 years and they still haven't figured out how to navigate through their own life, right? And I know this is taboo for someone that's a guide and has a wellness center and industry and all that kind of stuff, but that's the freaking point, man. That's why I came here. That's why I came to this industry. I saw it in the entertainment industry. I saw it in the financial industry. I've seen it in every industry that I've been a part of, distribution, whatever. These are universal things. They're reflections of our collective consciousness. And it's all meant to be embodied in the moment. And that's the scariest thing for most people. Because they'll say, I'm in the moment, but I'm moving towards this horizon. Or I'm processing something back here. So-and-so said something to me, and it made me stop to question myself because I wanted to know if it was true or not. And it would be easier to just reject it and move forward. Deny it and move forward than to sit with the truth that it's possible. It is possible that we can do anything, good or bad. That's the capability of our humanness. Now, how do we consciously steward that? That's our choice. And you want to make people choose to be a certain way or look a certain way or act a certain way, that's on you, man. Good luck. How about you treat me with love and respect? I treat you with love and respect. And we go have a good day together. Go do something. Go share a meal. Get out of the rut of your routines and your rituals and your agendas. Because life will surprise you when you stop trying to control all the aspects of it. It will surprise you even if you try to control all the aspects. You'll just be so busy trying to control all the aspects, you miss the surprise. That's where gratitude is such an important factor in receiving everything we like and we dislike, because it neutralizes it. Grateful for the bugs in my garden. Does that mean that I'm just going to be like, yeah? No, of course not. Care about I steward that garden. And the better I steward that garden, the better it rewards everybody, including all the other wildlife animals that get to eat the things that we don't eat. Not that we're on a hierarchy, but there's some things, a worm gets to. It got to it before I did, and I'm not going to personally eat that. So I'm currently in a place where I don't have to. That was my only choice. I'd probably eat it. Because it's in our nature to want to extend our life. I saw a really good video explaining consumption of food and water. And it is absolutely true. When you eat lots of fruits and lots of vegetables and not so much meat, you're going to feel lighter in your body. You're going to feel less grounded. You're going to feel really high and connected, and it feels good until it doesn't. And the same thing with meat. Personally, I pray over everything I eat. I do Reiki over it. I give gratitude for the lives that have been taken so I may live on. I think the lives that helped get it to me, because I may have purchased it at the grocery store or at a friend's house or something like that, and I wasn't personally responsible for producing the food, which no one is ever personally responsible for the food. It's a relationship with nature. You can't make a tomato grow. You can give it the things that it needs so it can grow in the best way possible, and keep the bugs off of it, pull the worms off, all those different things. But you cannot make a tomato a tomato. It's not in our power, and not in our total power. It's in our influence. So I guess this whole purpose of this talk today was quit worrying so much about how you're going to die. It's going to happen. How about living a really good life so when it does, it's worth it? What would that look like? How would that shift your paradigm? In your world, the whole purpose, the whole vision of this was to create a safe space for people to be themselves, to allow them to be a little bit of a misfit, to dabble in the taboo, to question what it means to be human, not on a destructive nature by any means. Nature. You only know that by going through the experience. I can say when I first started cocaine, I didn't see any drawbacks. Making a lot of money, it made me super focused. I was able to do more than ever because I wasn't tired. And a few months of that heavy usage, and then I got to see the other challenges, the lack of sleep causing hallucinations, and people breaking into your house to steal from you, and people constantly owing you money, and all this different stuff. There was downsides to everything that I've ever done. There was upsides and downsides, even in finance and everything else. And so we have to find that rhythm for ourselves, right? We might call it a compromise. We might find it something, find, balance, or, we'll find some way to make it more comfortable, even though maybe it doesn't quite fit. I know I've been able to do that with a lot of efficiency in a lot of different things. And it was it was to get along, to fake it till I made it, right? And then I make it to a certain point, and I'm like, okay, people, here I am. Here's the whole version. Here's the whole me. You want to see what happens when respected continuously? I'm probably gonna stand up for myself. I might get a little angry. One thing that I've gotten way better at, though, is not throwing projections and names, and it's just like, if that's how you see me, okay, this is how I'm seeing you. Now, how are we gonna merge those two divides? Because even in physical space, even in physical space, you don't think and that you're safe. If you are not actually being that, you're wrong. Period. If someone challenges you or makes a proposal to you or creates an intention or a perspective, shares something with you, and you don't like what it is, and you don't share that makes you uncomfortable, and you don't want to talk about it anymore, that's on you. Because unless that person is so absolutely present in that moment, and they can feel that energy shift, and then they can say, oh, I'm sorry, I overstepped my boundaries. Apparently I said something to make you uncomfortable or to make you pull back. I apologize. Accusations happen. People make up narratives, they create characters. And when people are so used to having villains in their life, because that's who they like to make everybody into, because they're not ready to get past their victim mentality, they are not truly living. I've lived that from my experience on both sides of the fence. I was not stepping into my power because I didn't think I could, because when I did, people bucked back. Not because I was being mean, not because I was being angry, it was because I was pushing them faster than they were willing to be pushed into a perspective that they weren't ready to sit in yet. That was my mistake. The other mistake is being so passive and saying, okay, here it is, guys, it's all here. Who's coming? I'll just sit here till you do. And then getting angry because you sat around for years waiting for people to buy into what you say you want to do, because you ain't fucking doing it. You want to be that caliber of person? You want to be a healer? You want to help humanity? You want to help the planet? Go fucking do it. Do something. As simple as picking up a piece of trash. Now you're doing it. And I know this might seem a little edgy or a little this or a little that, but you know what? If I'm going to be my authentic self, then I'm going to ruffle feathers. And that's okay. I've always been cool with that. You don't have to like me. I prefer that you would respect me for my ways of being and how I don't give up. And my ultimate goal is to come into reconciliation with all those that have felt wronged or um, cheated or misused or any of those things, and come to homeostasis, come to an understanding that it wasn't intentional, circumstantial. My former business partner in the bar, that sank, put me on the whole directory towards this healing, because it destroyed what I believed growing up about business and the way you do things and how you handle people and doing the right thing for the right reasons, and all that stuff. I totally challenged that, because the guy was embezzling money from his financial firm, and he got in trouble essentially because he invested it in our business. He got the investors that he was embezzling money from involved in our business, so it exposed him in ways that it wouldn't have exposed him had he not got involved in this business. Why did he get in the business? Because he liked me, he liked my ideas. We had an opportunity, and he thought it was for a good thing, and we were going to be able to do it, and we were going to be able to make a lot of money, and we definitely were on our way, doing exactly what it was that we intended out doing, and we were receiving those results until we didn't. Why didn't we? Because the people found out that the investors found out that they were being embezzled on, and then all of the drama that started happening in the dynamics of the relationship of the restaurant. Our food got better, our advertising got better, our staff was better trained and equipped to handle things. Yet there was a dynamic that couldn't get solved. And when my father wanted to invest in that business, he was willing to invest a lot more money in it because of what it was. And I told him no, because it wasn't the right investment. And he got so angry, and I said, trust me, it's not a good place to throw money. It's not safe. And 6 months later, he found out why. Less than 6 months. But yet again, here we are in this opportunity with all this, and he sees all of it, and again, this time it is right, because I know I've helped save lives. I know I've helped enhance businesses and other people's relationships and circumstances, and my own. My dad even commenting to me the other day about how, even though he's been comes at me hard, and all the various different ways that he's always done, the shift in me, because I don't get reactive. I don't respond in the ways that I used to. So now he sees it, because it's different. When we're the same, it's this escalation of the same frequency. It doesn't matter what you say, it doesn't matter what you do, it's just the same energy. That's where people get stuck in consciousness. Try to quantify it. It's this energy. I'll leave you with this. My grandma once asked me if I believed in God, Creator. I said yes. I said I can even share that it exists. And I went out over to the light switch, and I flipped the light. And I said, behold, the extinguisher of darkness. But the also thing about electricity and light is it also creates contrast where it is not. They're not separate from one another. They couldn't they wouldn't exist without each other. They coexist together. So the question is, between the polarity of this question, what is worth dying for and what is truly living for, I ask you to let down your light. Let down what you think you know, what you feel, and what you believe about this, that, or the other person. And truly step into the potential of not knowing, of the unfolding. Doesn't mean that people haven't acted those ways back then, but then isn't now. So I invite you to start living more in the now, looking towards the horizon, than the now, looking back how life hasn't met up to your standards, expectations, or what you believed it was supposed to be. Find the peace, find the love, find the harmony within yourself for where you're at, and enhance your life from there. Starts with your thoughts and your feelings, then your actions. Those actions will bring those into physical reality every time. It's the master key. It's the Holy Trinity. All these different things, ways we can express these things, the different languages using the same kind of words, separating us from our perceptions and perspectives of what we thought, who we think we are, and how we are moving forward. But each moment, we have the opportunity to consciously participate in this thing we call life. And I invite you to make it the best one that you can. I love you. Thank you for being you. This world would be so different without you. May we have a blessed day. If you want to learn more about enhancing your world and how we can help enhance your reality through our ecosystem, visit enhancingyourworld.com. You can visit any of our wellness center in Newport. We have a retreat coming up in September at the retreat center, and of course online and the community and all that. So love for you to get some more information of that if that feels right to you. And may we all learn how to walk in right relationship with one another so we can bring in this new earth. We can bring in that new life. We can bring in that new way of being human for our future generations. Much love and gratitude. See you next week.